Nicole Smith
and Eric Bailey
from Blood and Iron Martial Arts, and we're here today to give you the rule set
for Combat Con 2018.
We're going to start with talking about the match length. Matches will run for 90 seconds or...
When the 90 seconds is up and there's still an exchange going on, final exchange is called. There's no stoppage yet until the first hit.
In the event of a tie, it goes to sudden death or...
the first clean hit, which means no afterblow or double.
Now I'd like to talk a little bit about double hits. A double hit is Eric and I throwing a cut for each other at the same time and landing a blow at the same time.
A faulted double is when one fighter is in a high aggressive position and the other fighter tries to land a thrust underneath while the attack is coming down. This shows no regard for their own safety and will result in a 2-point penalty for the fighter throwing this thrust.
There are a limit to the number of doubles that you are allowed in your pools. 3 doubles and you are out. It is counted as a loss for both fighters. Doubles will also affect your pool standings. The more doubles you have, the more negative points you have, the less likely you are to advance.
In eliminations, doubles are handled a little bit differently. After 3 doubles, the fighters are not eliminated from the match, but there's a cumulative penalty to their score. Once you go past 3, every double after that will assess you a -2 penalty in the beginning of your next match. This makes it really hard to keep winning.
Let's talk about the afterblow.
An afterblow is what happens when one fighter lands a hit, but they are unable to defend an immediate subsequent hit from their opponent. This happens within one tempo, but not at the same time. One thing to keep in note is we will not score an afterblow made to a lower target. If Nicole lands a solid hit on me, and I just swing for the leg with the afterblow, it's not going to count for much because I wouldn't have the structure required to make that cut. With a proper afterblow, it deducts 1 point from the original score. That being said, there is a difference between an afterblow and
a revenge hit. Now we're talking about a really late afterblow, where I'll come in, I'll end my strike on Eric, and then, he'll come back and wildly throw a strike at me. Now, this is not cool, and it will be penalized. First it'll be a warning, and then it'll be a point deduction. Not to happen.
Yeah, you can actually really injure someone with that. It's really unsafe.
Points will be awarded for cuts, thrusts, slices, and pummel strikes, in accordance to the rules of each tournament.
That being said, there will be no points awarded for a touch. All strikes have to be done with proper intent.
In order for a cut to count, it needs to have at least 75 degrees travel, and it has to be backed by solid body structure.
We won't be counting hits that are done in a flaily or incidental manner. This kind of thing won't count. Neither will if I miss my cut and then touch her with my sword.
In order for your strike to be valid, only a certain part of the sword can be used. Tip cuts don't count. Anything landing toward the strong part of the sword, not so much.
A good idea is if you take hand length from the tip. This is the area you should be striking with, and no further than about 2/3 down the blade. Thrusts must be done in a committed manner, with sound body structure moving behind the blade.
Thrusts that are not committed will not count. Things that are just all arms, we're not sewing machines, people, we're sword fighters. Let's talk about pommel strikes. Pommel strikes will only count if they are to the mask. You are not allowed to hit to the top of the head, to the side of the head, or to the back of the head.
When we say mask, we mean the mesh part on the front. Try not to hit anywhere that's covered by a cloth overlay. An important thing about pommel strikes is they don't have to be really hard. It's actually quite easy to injure someone with a sword like that. So what we need is a demonstration of structure and control. If you move with your body weight behind it, showing that you could have delivered a hard hit, that will be sufficient. If you crank someone, you'll probably get at least a warning, if not a penalty, for excessive force.
Targets that are off limits. First up, hands. Intentionally targeting someone's hands, you will be given a warning, and after that, there will be a penalty. Now, this is different than accidentally hitting someone's hands if they put them in the way of a valid strike. In fact, what might happen is you'll get points for the head strike rather than the hand.
Another forbidden target. The foot. No strikes to the foot. Really small bones on the top of the foot are easy to break. We're not here to injure people.
Another one, targeting the back of the head. There's absolutely no reason for you to target the back of the head. If, for some reason, the person you're fighting turns around and exposes, you are expected to pull your strike. But if there is a fighter that intentionally keeps exposing the back of the head, they will be warned and then they will be penalized.
Strikes to the spine are also completely forbidden. If a fighter is turning their back intentionally to avoid a strike, this will be on them, and like with the back of the head, they'll receive a warning and then a penalty. However, if you are intentionally stepping around the other fighter to target the back, you'll be the one receiving the warning and penalty.
One more completely invalid strike would be the march slog. We do not want this part of the sword making contact with any of our fighters.
The only way you're allowed to strike with the pommel is a regular pommel strike.
Controlled.
So as you probably know, this is a sword fighting tournament. This means no punches and kicks will be allowed. Just don't do it. Another thing that will be penalized is wild strikes that are very clearly done without any sense of control or concern for the safety of your opponent. If you're just swinging and not controlling your power, you will be warned and then penalized, and if you keep doing it, ejected from the tournament.
We mentioned where you can't hit. Let's talk about what you can. Valid targets are to the head,
4 points.
to the body,
3 points.
to the arms,
1 point.
to the leg.
2 points.
A thrust,
A thrust to the torso or head is worth 2 points,
unless it's a covered thrust.
which controls my blade, in which case it's worth 5.
Thrust to the arm,
A thrust to the arm or leg is only worth 1 point. And there's no covered.
and a pommel strike.
Pommel is worth 1.
A slice,
A slice requires a breaking of the structure, and if you slice at the neckline or are on the head, it's worth 4 points. Or to the arms, 1. Those are the only acceptable targets for slice. There are no slices to the torso or leg.
another kind of strike that is not allowed at this tournament, one-handed strikes, specifically Geisling. We do not want this one-handed targeting the ankle kind of strike. Now, there are one-handed strikes that are allowed if you come into a bind and you manage to push and control the other person's sword arm. I can come in for a strike with this one hand. But like I said, it's provided you have some sort of control. Valid targets. Strike to the head, 3 points. Strike to the leg below the knee, 2 points. Everything else is 1 point.
All thrusts with sword and buckler are worth 1 point, no matter what the target is, unless it's a covered thrust, where you're controlling the opponent's weapon. This is worth 3 points, only to the head and torso. The other valid strike in sword and buckler is the buckler punch. The buckler punch is only valid to the head and with the boss of the buckler. No striking with the rim. Not cool.
Let's talk about the Rapier tournament. Now, you have a choice. You can either fight it single sword or you can fight it sword and dagger.
If you opt to have a dagger, you take a 2-point penalty at the beginning of the match.
Thrust to the head or to the torso is 3 points. Thrust anywhere else, arms or legs, 1 point. Cuts. Cuts are valid to the head, arms, and legs. Cuts to the body will not be counted.
Cuts are worth 1 point.
Yes. Now, daggers. You can stab somebody with your dagger, but it doesn't matter what the target is, it'll only be worth 1 point. Now, for cuts, you need to have sufficient draw. What we're looking for is that you land your blade at least a third of the way down and pull through. Just tapping your opponent with the sword is not going to count.
Valid targets include the head,
4 points.
the torso,
3 points.
the leg,
2 points.
and the arm.
1 point.
There are no thrusts in the single stick tournament. No pommels, no punching with the basket. It's a stick. Unlike last year, we will not be allowing fighters to wear jackets like the Spess jacket during the single stick tournament. If you're wearing a heavy jacket, you're not going to be worried about getting hit, and you will start to fight more suicidally. So we decided maximum is a heavy hoodie. All skin must still be covered though.
Now, this has just been a brief overview of our rules for this year.
But please visit the CombatCon website for a more in-depth look at the rules as well as gear requirements for each event.